Hello, welcome to another reasonably sleepy video. It's been a long week. One thing that I think about quite a bit when I'm teaching students and when I'm making my own work is how I should start a painting. I think it's the one thing that people struggle with more than anything else is just making a start on something. I think a lot of the time we're presented with a big blank canvas and we don't really know what to do about it. It's an intimidating thing, it's a scary thing. And it can be something that prevents us from even thinking about making work in the first place. One way I've figured that people can sort of get over this initial fear is by working from general to specific. So there's a lot of really specific stuff going on in whatever image you look at. There are a lot of really specific shapes, really specific colours, really specific values, and those shapes, those values, those colours, they mean something, right? Then they're not just arbitrary. They relate to a 3D form being represented in a 3D space that has a particular light source from a particular direction, right? And so if you get those shapes wrong, it's quite scary. So let's not start with those shapes. Let's just start with vague color, vague value, almost as though you're sort of in the middle of waking up, or you're dreaming or something, and you're just getting the feeling or the impression of the image that you're thinking about. So I'm doing this, I did it in the first example, I'm doing it here as well, with just a big soft round brush. And it is almost like I'm not painting objects, I'm just painting light and mood, which is kind of difficult to describe, but hopefully that makes sense. And as soon as I've established that mood, I've established that light, I can begin to work into it. But even as I'm working into it, I'm not thinking in really, really specific terms. I'm not getting hyper specific with the shapes that I'm using. I'm not getting really specific with the 3D forms that I'm trying to create in this canvas. I'm still just putting down texture, outlining maybe some things that are going on, and it's helping me build up to these shapes. I'm doing it slowly, I'm sort of gradually moseying my way there, and eventually I'll get them down, but I'm not in a rush to get them down. I'm not in a rush to get an image that feels realistic or feels like it has a complete set of forms going on. So I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to get my students and other student artists to understand is that they should feel more comfortable in the abstract. Maybe it's something that came a little bit easier to me, having come from a fine art kind of background before I got into digital art, before I got into concept art. Just this idea that we can play around with abstract texture and colour. I think a lot of people shrug that stuff off. They see like a piece of modern art in a museum and it's, well, this is just modern nonsense, and you know, it doesn't apply to anything I do. But I think there are scenarios in which it can. I think at every image's core, we are just talking about something very abstract. We are just talking about a grouping of pigments. I guess not pigments if they're viewed on a monitor. We're talking about pixels of light that are just different hex codes of colour, and they come together to make an image, but it's almost not even an image, it's the impression of an image. And so it's our job to play around in the abstract and think about just the appeal of these shapes and these colours on their own, which eventually in context might appear to be a tropical plant or something, right? It's almost like those vague colours and values need to have their own interest before they lend that interest to a specific subject matter. Maybe that's the best way of thinking about it. And so, vague to specific, that's the name of the game. It can help with, yes, starting paintings. I think it's far less intimidating. I think the skill level required to engage in this kind of painting is lower. I think everyone, no matter how good you are at painting, should be able to just plot down some very sort of approximate, simple blobs, and then work from there. Get slowly more specific. It's not just painting that we approach this way. This can apply to things like design, right? So if you are going to design a character, you should probably approach it in a vague to specific manner. So how old is the character? Are they generally a good character, or a neutral character, or a bad character? You're going to think about these things probably before you go into depth about exactly what horrific circumstances befell them in their youth, or the fact that they own a particular necklace that belonged to their family member or something else, right? It's important that we get the big concepts down first, because the little concepts sort of exist within them, right? One thing you might have noticed me doing a lot in this painting is defining big shapes and shape relationships, and then selecting them with something like the magic wand and painting inside of them. And I can insert this texture, and I can insert more information, but that information sits within a consolidated larger shape. So I want to make another video about drawing, and I think we can talk about more of that stuff in that video. I find it interesting that specific shapes tell a specific story, and we have the license to play around inside of those shapes as long as the strength of the shape itself isn't compromised. So yeah, vague to specific. I think that's the general idea here with my rambling. Give it a go, see how you feel with it. I know so many people struggle with zooming in right away and like diving into the detail in every single little leaf if they were to render out a tree, and it's so unhelpful. I think you just get so sidetracked, and it is intimidating. It's like, oh, how am I gonna deconstruct all of this visual information? The answer is that we don't have to, at least not initially. We can start from somewhere much more comfortable, much easier to digest, much easier to put down, and then we can work up to those big challenges, right? Treat it like any other challenge in your life. Maybe you have a particularly messy house like I do at the moment. I'm gonna have to clean it first thing in the morning. I'm probably not gonna start cleaning by, I don't know, polishing or wiping down a very specific surface. I'm probably going to start cleaning by picking my socks up off the floor, like big obstacles first. I'm going to get out the way before I start looking at how dusty an individual light bulb is or something else, right? We tackle big things first, and then we work our way down smaller. It tends to be that the bigger things are more important anyway, right? Those big relationships in terms of shape and colour are the most important things you're going to put down in the whole painting. So let's do them first and get them out of the way, and everything else will just fall into place nice and neatly. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. In the description there's a link to the public Discord server and the Patreon, which has its own Discord server, so check those out, and I'll see you in the next video.